A trip with us to Nilbog. Just promise not to drink the goo.
Oh my god!
If you get sucked into the Matrix, we will sing the phone for you.
Do you believe in fate?
But every movie has a plot hole, and every hole gets filled somehow. Whiskey, wine, or blue milk. Just don't cut me off right now. We're the Plotaholics, a breakfast club of two. We're the Plotaholics, ripping plots apart for you.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Hey, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Plotaholics podcast. I'm Shane Wilson, and I'm joined, as always, by Brian Tan. Mr. Tan,
Hey, yo, how's it going?
how are you? I'm good.
Doing all right. Got the office sort of switched around. That's why you don't have the window behind me anymore. Got a
Then
new
better
little,
one.
yep, got a new setup now. Well, I'm getting new windows put in,
Okay.
and I had to move my fish tank because they said they need 3 feet of space. So my fish tank was in front of a window, and so was my desk. So I just rearranged everything so they could, come in here, do their thing. So I'm not freezing to death in here all the time.
Okay. Nice. That'll be good.
Yeah,
But I like this. The lighting is better.
yeah, I think so. I've got the sun lamp to the left of me and the regular light to the right of me. It's got a nice little ambient type of thing here. I'm liking it. I'm liking it.
Yeah. This week, Mr. Tan,
Yep.
you proposed that we forget Paris.
Yeah, I'm a big Billy Crystal fan.
Yeah.
I think Billy Crystal is one of the funniest actors and comedians on the planet. He's definitely up there for me. And this is probably one of my favorite films that he's in. That's not called The Princess Bride.
So I think that Billy Crystal is also very funny.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when Billy Crystal is on and when he's at his funniest, it's very hard to beat him. Like, he's very good. He's one of my favorite Oscars hosts. And we've obviously talked about him before. We've done some other Billy.
We did When Harry Met Sally.
Right. Which, for my money, if I'm going to do a Billy Crystal rom-com, it's that one.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's better than this, but we'll talk about that. So I think we probably had this conversation when we did When Harry Met Sally, which was probably 2 or 3 years ago now.
Yeah, sounds about right.
How did Billy Crystal become this rom-com guy?
I think it's because he's an everyman type. He's not this overly tall, imposing figure. He's the funny everyman. And
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people can see themselves, because you figure, man, when Billy Crystal was, in the 80s, there were a lot of guys. You had your Sylvester Stallones, your Jean-Claude Van Damme's, your Arnold Schwarzenegger's. Billy Crystal is none of those things.
Right.
He is just a regular, everyday guy. And he can just fit with anyone. I mean, you look at his...
Well, I was gonna say, they tend to also put him in films opposite of women that are also every woman types. Right?
Yeah. Meg Ryan, in this case,
realistic feeling love stories, because he's not. They're matching him up, I think, appropriately in most.
Oh,
cases.
absolutely. And even when he is matched up with certain people, you look at the film Running Scared with Gregory Hines. Gregory Hines is smooth and cool, and even though Billy Crystal is not smooth and cool, he is really good at complementing that by being the funny everyman.
Yeah. I think that this movie is at its best when it's more calm than rom.
I agree.
I think that the rom is like honestly pretty basic.
I
Like
mean,
it hits the notes that every other rom-com hits, and it just feeds it through like a slightly different framing mechanism to make it feel fresh, right? Like
Yeah.
it is interesting. It's an interesting choice to like have the story told to us via these friends that are like hanging out waiting on these people to show up to dinner.
Yeah, and they don't even know if they're going to come together. Like they know
Right.
one person is
Interesting
coming.
framing device. I like that. I liked it.
Yeah,
I feel like
it's
if you took that away from this movie would be incredibly basic.
yeah, and I think also what it does is that it forces you to have to see things from opposite perspectives. And we've talked about this in the rom-com sort of formula, is that there's always this kind of misunderstanding that could have been fixed with communication.
Yeah.
And but you always have someone that you can blame. In
Mhm.
this, with other people telling this story, we're getting to know these people at the same time as this other person is, but we're also getting the different perspectives of the situation so that we can't take sides. And even if we do take a side, we can see both
Well,
points.
we're taking the right side in this case, right? Because, well, I mean,
We're,
whose
we're
friends
not.
these are his friends, right?
They were. It's almost like the men were his friends and the women were her friends.
One woman, right?
Well, yes and no, because it seemed
Because
like
the first woman that's being told the story doesn't know either of them.
she doesn't know either one of them. And was it Anthony Joe Montana? I don't know why I wanted to say he was the one guy because he was the other guy that was in Godfather 3. That's why I was almost Anthony Garcia. Joe Montana is Billy Crystal's best friend in this film.
Mm-hmm.
And he's getting married to this woman, Liz, played by Cynthia Stevenson. And so he's starting to tell the story from the best friend perspective. And then other friends in their group, Richard Mazer, who plays Craig, and this is our second time we've really seen him, and his wife, Julie Kavner, where if you know Julie Kavner, you may not recognize her voice or her name, but you know her. That's the voice of Marge Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Jack, played by John Spencer, and Kathy Moriarty playing Lois, showing up. And the dynamic that I get from this group is that Mickey, Billy Crystal's character, is like the odd man out in some of these instances. At least it is with Craig and Lucy, because you figure, and they talk about this in the film. Andy, played by Joe Montana,
Mm-hmm.
is a lifelong bachelor. Jack is a co-worker of Mickey's, and he's perpetually jumping from marriage to marriage, and Mickey just casually dates.
Mm-hmm.
So really,
The
Lois
indication that
Mhm.
Mickey is nailing like a different cheerleader in every city is the biggest pile of bullshit I've ever seen in a movie.
Well, let me slice off a synopsis before we jump in there, because I definitely want to talk about that, because Sharon and I sort of had a similar thing. So, Forget Paris is the tale of NBA referee Mickey Gordon and his whirlwind romance with Ellen and his wife Ellen, whom he met in Paris under very interesting circumstances. And over this 4 to 5 year period of laughter, love, and heartache, we learn eventually, forget Paris.
Yeah.
And so, all right, let's talk about what you just raised, because I think do you think Billy Crystal could get any cheerleader in any city he wanted if he put on the charm?
No, okay. What you're asking me is not what happens in this movie.
Mm.
Billy Crystal did not get these women. Mickey Gordon got these women, and that is a different question.
Okay, fair enough. So you don't think that a highly successful NBA referee who is confident,
that even mean?
like highly
Like,
Because here's the
I
thing.
mean, like, okay, I will say that it is likely that this guy could knock down some Strange because he's like renowned, right? Like because
Mhm.
people know who he is because he makes controversial calls, right? But like a successful referee is a referee that shows up that and no one knows who they are.
Well, not to well that and the fact that, but the thing is that
How much do these guys get paid? How much does an NBA referee get paid?
I don't know. Let me ask Siri.
Let's
Hey Siri,
how much in 1995?
how much in 1995 did NBA referees make? All right, so in 1994, the estimated referee's salary was between $72,000 and $177,000.
Okay.
Now, it's mentioned in the film that Mickey's officiating crew is among the best in the league.
Right.
And the best guys and the best referees in the league are the ones that, yes, sometimes they do get mentioned.
Out to like the playoff games and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're the ones that they get to play the big marquee games. They're the guys that can make the tough calls, get it right.
And he's the lead, right? He's the lead ref.
He's the lead ref, yes.
Okay. Who is the best referee in the NFL?
They all suck if you paid if you watched any time this season.
Name 5 referees in the NFL.
I don't know any of those. I don't know any of the NFL referees.
Right. Name 5 NBA referees.
Only NBA referee that I know that's not named Mickey Gordon is that guy that was fixing games.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I don't remember that guy's name either.
Yeah. Tim something or whoever. Tim Duty Head.
Referee and people know your name, it's not a good thing.
I mean, there are some referees that are known, that were known because, like what Mickey Gordon did, he made a tough call and stood by it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that he's a bad referee. And he was good. He was right and he did his job. Some referees wouldn't do it. I think that that's what constitutes as
I think where I have a hard time with like the casual dating of it all with Mickey. It's like Mickey is absolutely the guy that that Ellen ends up with, like that Ellen type ends up with, right?
Right.
Mickey, if you're one of those cheerleaders, right, and all you want is to knock one around one night, this is not the guy you're doing that with.
Well, I mean, hey, some women like a guy that make them laugh.
Right, but that's not what this is about. If that's what this was about, they would be looking for relationships, but that's not what this is about.
Or maybe I don't know, man. Maybe the unconventional guys try harder. I don't know. I've never been a woman.
That could be true. That there could be something to that. But I just think like if you are like if you're looking for a relationship,
you go for the one that makes you laugh.
Mickey Gordon, because you go for the one that makes you laugh. But like if you're going for the one, like if you're going for like a one and done sort of situation, or even just like a different girl in every night, right? Like that whole, like this, much has been made in other media about like how basketball players, for example, will have girlfriends in different cities, right?
Yeah.
Like you're like, if you are going to hang out with them for a day or two and then like leave, like it doesn't matter if they make you laugh.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I've never been a woman. I kind of wish we could get a female perspective.
Okay, but you've been a man.
I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, a hot chick is a hot chick, but if she can, like, make me chuckle a time or two, right, that makes it a little bit more fun.
In love with her, like that's the difference, right? Is like a hot chick is a hot chick. That's all I want if I want a one night stand. I'm not trying to get attached to this woman.
Yeah, but I mean, don't you want to at least be mildly entertained if you're going to be spending a couple hours with someone?
What you wanted to do? Do a stand up routine while you're inside of her?
I mean, hey, if she can do it. Either I'm doing something really, really wrong, or she is just very talented and can compartmentalize.
What is the deal?
What is the deal with your technique? My God, if you go any faster, I'm going to call you a hummingbird.
Listen, and I say this as the guy that's the boyfriend and not the one night stand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like game recognized game. This dude ain't getting laid by strange women every night. Like this dude is in committed relationships. Like Mickey Gordon is like, they can try to make him this womanizer if they want to, but it's just not, it's not believable on this guy.
I hear you. I mean,
who is it believable on, right? Like that. Now, here's the other thing, right? Like, because I need somebody that is both funny, charismatic, but also like I could see this person dropping somebody, right?
yeah.
Like if you're talking about like a one night stand sort of situation, then what you're talking about is a guy who is confident enough in his game that he believes that he could drop this hot ass chick that he got tonight and go find another one tomorrow. I don't think
Yeah.
that's Mickey unless he's like leaning on money to do that, right?
Well, I mean,
But-
he's making over 100 and some odd
Right,
grand a
he's
year.
traveling and all of that stuff. Like it's possible, right? Like there, it is.
He might have enough swag to be like, how you doing?
You watched the same movie I did.
Yeah.
I don't think he's got enough swag. Especially when, now here's the other thing you've got to remember is that all of these specific women, if the women had even been anything other than cheerleaders, I could almost buy it. Because what
Right.
you're saying is like all of the women that he's taken to bed, watch him stand next to physical perfection
Specimen.
for like 3 hours a night and they choose him.
Yeah, no, you know what? I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying, maybe just what if they all hang out at the same bar?
Maybe honestly, maybe it's because they want to do a little like mommy play, right? And they want to take care of a little boy.
Well, he can about wear kids' clothes. Reggie Miller said so.
Now, I will say, like the funniest, the basketball scenes were like the funniest scenes. To
I
me.
enjoyed the basketball
Because
scenes.
there's something effortlessly physically funny about watching him in that stupid little referee outfit talking to these ginormous basketball players. Like that was funny.
I especially love the fact when Spud Webb came up to him, he was like, "You know what? You're the only one I can talk to," and they both just sort of laughed. I love that part. I love at the beginning though, because I mean, I'm sorry, man. Charles Barkley getting pissed off in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be anywhere near that. If Billy Crystal's like, whatever, man. You didn't get it. Fuck you.
Do you think that the shot was late?
It was late.
It was late. That was my thought when I was watching it. I thought he didn't get that off. Like even before the call was made, right? I was like, he didn't get that off.
He really did not.
And it is that like, man, to do that, to make that call in that situation, in that arena, it's like I remember seeing like NFL referees have to make calls like that in like visiting stadiums or whatever.
I remember I can't remember who the Cleveland Browns were playing, but the referees made a rough call and folks were throwing beer bottles and snowballs.
It can get rugged for sure.
Bro, the Philadelphia Eagles fans were throwing batteries at Santa Claus. Okay? Dude, sports fans are freaking nuts.
Yeah, well, because they're all drunk.
Not even like some.
Usually, by the time
a lot of times they're drunk when that comes
calls
up.
are happening, or those rough calls at the end of a game. Like they're all fucking jacked up. They're all like a bunch of them are drunk, and there's
a mob mentality,
right? Exactly. Like there's so many of them, and especially when you're talking about like a home crowd.
Oh yeah, and I mean you see a lot of this stuff happening in the NBA today, where like players are getting fed up with it, and they're not taking it, and rightly so, because I mean, what was it over the last couple of years? You're seeing these people that are sitting courtside that feel that because they spent money to sit courtside, they could just treat people any which kind of way. Right. And players even say, say what you want, sure, but recognize that if you start getting personal, I'm a human being and I don't have to take it.
Yeah.
But people have this horrible idea of entitlement that they can treat entertainers any which way they want because, well, your job is to entertain me, so I can abuse you. No. Do I? Matter of fact, it's like Chris Rock said in the one movie, do I come to your job and kick the squeegee out your hand?
Right.
So, but no, he was one. I mean, I really think it was hilarious where all these people were like flipping out at him. The old lady's giving him the finger.
Yeah.
And I love how they're like slowing down everyone's audio.
Like way more grotesque looking. But yeah, so he got that call right. So now, okay, his dad dies. And I also feel like, I think that the very, very beginning of this movie is the best part of it. Like the first 30 minutes, so good. when
The first 30 minutes are great.
when they lose his father's casket in transport, he wanted to be buried in Paris because he was in D-Day. I think on our side, but I don't like that with us, but I don't know.
Oh god. And he's
That's
like,
so
it was
funny.
like his dad left when he was just a little kid. Oh no, it was great. He hated him. We had a block party when he was gone. It was awesome.
Right.
I love it though. He's trying not to be a jerk, and then he finally snaps.
Mhm.
If I was Hitler, you'd give me my father. You give me your whole goddamn country. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, dude. Like, yeah, that is a rugged line for sure. But they find the casket, and this is when he meets Ellen, right? Like, who like sort of helps him track everything down. And she's like, "You're gonna have to verify that it's him." And he's like, "How many of these do y'all have floating around? Like, why?"
Well, here, just put him on his stomach so I can pretend like he's walking away. That's how I know him.
Like, there are some like really witty, like Naked Gun level jokes in the first like third of this movie.
Oh yeah, like I really like where he was like, we had issues with the Swiss. Oh, I know they're brutal. They put holes in my cheese.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that was the exact line I was thinking of. That whole.
That's such
I thought they were neutral.
Yeah, I like how she gives it the whip back to him though.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I really like it.
I would hate to be somebody. You know how some people like can't hear sarcasm. For sarcasm, they always think it's genuine. Like, I would hate to be one of those people watching this movie.
Yeah, because this movie is about 80% sarcasm.
Yeah. So he gets his flight. He's going to come back home, but then he's like really hitting it off with this chick. So he keeps like changing his flight. When little Billy Crystal put on that little Paris outfit that he had, that
he reminded me of Bart Simpson when he was the one episode in the earlier seasons when he was a foreign exchange student and he went to France. That's what he reminded me of. But yeah. I really thought it was kind of like, I even like that where she's like, we're going to take care of this, we're going to take care of that, and your airfare. He goes, oh, that makes up for you losing my father. Oh, and we're going to take care of your hotel. Yes! Yes! That is Billy Crystal at Billy Crystal's best.
Yeah, and I like Billy Crystal. I think he's very funny.
I really do too.
I enjoy a Billy Crystal rom-com because I like the texture of it. It feels like this is a 1995 movie. If his rom-coms feel like classic cinema because of the way that they're shot. Mm-hmm. Like they have
music.
Very big city. The music is all like jazz standards and like old classic, like American sort of songbook type things.
It kind of makes you feel like what you would think New York was in like the 50s and 60s kind of. Without the grossness that say Woody Allen movie would make you feel.
Yeah. I feel like it tonally it's mostly appropriate, but this scene where she gets this bird stuck in her hair.
Oh my God, I laughed so hard at that.
It is very funny. Now, we all know here on the Plotaholics, I am a huge fan of small animal attacks.
Yeah. And I think you like, the only thing you like more than small animal attacks is little kids getting freaking
Sticky Hands.
Yeah.
Sticky Hands is my all-time favorite bit.
Mm-hmm. Followed by little kids.
Little kids getting wrecked. And small animal attacks.
Yes.
If we can find a way to combine Sticky Hands and one of those other two things, then even better.
That's the perfect movie, right?
And that's sort of what happened here, right? Is like instead of sticky hands, we had sticky hair. So like that bit works, but that one bit felt tonally very different from the rest of the comedy because the comedy here was very dialogue based, very dialogue centric.
Yes,
that was the one bit of sort of physical comedy, other than just like how ridiculous he looks next to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
And he's trying to get tough with Kareem, and then he's trying to get tough with Bill Laimbeer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, dude! And I'll tell you what, man, Bill Laimbeer was one of those basketball players that was like just mean.
Yeah,
like Bill Laimbeer didn't. For y'all that are only in your 20s or mid 30s, like early 30s, you don't know, man. Bill Laimbeer was one of the scariest dudes in basketball because he just didn't give a damn. Like when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who's was 7'2", 220 of muscle, was saying Bill Laimbeer's got me in a headlock out there, That he wasn't being facetious, man. Bill Laimbeer would have cats in headlocks.
Yeah.
It was that NBA of that time was way more rugged than today's NBA. I'm sorry, most guys in the NBA today would not make it in the NBA back then.
Yeah. So they hit it off. He like falls in love with her. She turns out to still be married. She's separated, but she's still
at first he has to come back.
Right.
And they're calling back and forth. He doesn't know. And then he snaps out at Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, throws out the starting five of the Lakers and the Pistons. So while he's on suspension, he goes back to Paris, proposes to her. That's when he finds out that she's married. And he's all like, upset, blah, blah, blah. But, it is what it is. Whatever. She's not available. So he's going to go back and start trying to date. And that's where we got,
Right. All of that.
Mm-hmm.
Then, which I call bullshit. Okay. Actually, you know what? Let's circle back to this again because I've got a theory.
Okay.
My theory is that he, like that Mickey,
yes,
lied about his traveling dating life to his friends, but they only have that based on, and they're the ones telling us the story, right?
Yeah.
And so because when she showed up in that hotel room, he was alone.
Yeah, he's fussing with the guy coughing in the other room.
This is your playboy. This is the big playboy that has a different woman in every city. The guy alone in the hotel room. Like there's a disconnect somewhere here.
Yeah, well, and what I think is really funny is his fiance goes, because the whole basic premise, the reason why they're telling this story is Andy, played by Joe Mantegna, is getting married to Liz, and they're waiting for his friends to show up because they're about to get married.
Right.
And they start to talk about how weird it was how they got together because of fax machine. For you kids that don't know,
right.
Fax machine was the early precursor to email. And he got her fax because it was like a number off. And she goes, that's got to be the craziest way two people ever met. Nah, Mickey and Ellen hold that title, at least in their weight class.
Yeah.
Which, again, a great line.
Right, for sure.
So he's telling this story. And she's like, well, what were you doing?
Him, right?
Yeah, that was told to him. She's like, well, what were you doing? I was in bed reading. Meanwhile, he's with some other chick. Of course, he doesn't want to tell her that.
Exactly. And so, like, we already see evidence that this guy is an unreliable narrator. But not only that, he can only tell us the version of the story that Billy Crystal and that Mickey told him because he wasn't there for all that stuff.
Yeah,
so,
and I'm pretty sure the NBA has
a guy that tries to like play. It's like talk a bigger game than he's actually playing.
Oh, especially if your best friend is literally can wherever he goes get one. Because I'm sorry, man, Joe Mantegna is pulling down way more sex partners than Billy Crystal is.
Right, and so. Like, I think that it would totally, because even that scene where all the cheerleaders are like, hey, Mickey, like whenever they're looking at the camera, like that whole thing just feels like a dream sequence. Like it's not even.
Doesn't feel real.
It doesn't feel real because they're on the court talking to him like in the middle of a game. Like that's not how that works.
Yeah, well, timeout, walking by and passing. But at the same token, though, I'm pretty sure a referee isn't going to high five Reggie Miller after he hits a 3-pointer. At least I don't think they're allowed.
That stuff feels like stuff that Mickey would have told his friends to make him seem cooler to them.
Yeah. Because, I don't think they're allowed to do that. Like, the referees have to just remain impartial and just keep their eyes. I mean, not to say, I can imagine, though, that it must be hard because if you're a fan of the game, if you're a fan of the game itself and someone makes a good play, you want to congratulate them. I mean, how many referees wanted to go up to Michael Jordan and be like, oh, my God, you're the fucking best?
I bet a bunch of them did, honestly. Like,
I'm pretty sure a bunch of them got Michael Jordan to sign basketballs for their kids.
For sure.
Space Jam is one of the only movies I think that is for as like surrealistic as it is.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that like people on opposing teams are begging him to sign stuff for their kids to be a hero is actually true.
All right. So she ends up leaving her husband, finds him alone in this hotel room.
I want to know how she found him.
That's another question that I have. That's something that we breezed right over because he acts surprised. How did she know which city to show up to?
Like, who does she call to find out? Because I'm pretty sure he's like, hey, NBA, where's this referee at? Because
Right.
I have to find him. Oh, yeah, let me just give you that
On
information.
the same token, how did she, off of like a major flight at the end of the movie, know exactly where to go to find him?
And how did they just let her into Madison Square Garden? Now, granted, this is pre 9/11, but I'm pretty sure pre 9/11, they still didn't just let random ass people show up into places.
And not walk out on the court.
Right. Yes, I'm
They
this
were talking at
referee's
that point,
wife.
right?
Yeah, I'm the referee's wife. Oh, well, go right ahead, miss.
Right.
Hollywood magic, man. She had that Harry Potter wand.
Yeah. So they get into once they are together, the fairy tale is quick to wear off.
Well, you also notice though too, and I'm sure you picked up on this, the storytelling via act, where at first it's just Andy and Liz, and then Craig and Lucy show up.
Right.
And then Lois and Jack show up. So you got Craig and Lucy coming into the second half of Act 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're the primary storytellers of Act 1 to finish Act 1. And then Act 2, Jack and Lois show up and they trade off telling the stories into Act 3. And Act 3, of course, is at the end where we get Mickey and Ellen. So what I really like, going back to the storytelling and the narrative, I like how we trade off of the storytellers, because the first half is absolutely, the first act is probably without a doubt so great, and it's so strong that it's
snappy. It's like it's exactly what you want in a movie. Like I was hooked in from the top, right? But
I'm glad.
And it makes sense that this guy would tell that story up to that point. Like that, it was a little sneaky on his part, right, to decide to stop telling it at that point, because he made it seem like a happy ending because he's his woman, you know. And then
all of his friends say
he didn't finish the story.
Yeah, and all of his friends were like, why does every woman that you're with end up crying?
Right, exactly.
And then, well, which story you tell him? Oh, the Mickey and Ellen story. Oh, yeah, which one? And then she's like, wait, what?
Yeah. So then we get like that next bit, and you know, it's a much like it honestly, the couple in this story feels so different from the couple in the first story.
Right, because, and this is where Sharon started to really feel a kind of way, because now we're getting to the point where the season's over, so now it's time for the marriage to really begin. And I kind of get where Ellen is feeling, because now she finds out Mickey lives in this condo in LA because he's a bachelor, and his whole place is for a single sports fan. And
what was it? They were like,
it's like a shrine to ESPN.
It's a shrine to watching ESPN. It's not even a shrine to ESPN. It's a shrine to watching ESPN.
And that's really what the whole thing is. And it's kind of funny, but the dude's a referee. So, of course, that's what he's going to have, because he's going to be watching sports constantly, because that's what he does.
Yeah.
And so then, you know, but she's really, you know, I even told Sharon, I'm like, I don't know what she's complaining about. He's got a place on the water, like right there on the beach. Like, that is what's up, man. If I was going to live in Cali, that's what I would want.
Yeah.
Like, for real. But then, you know, so she gets a job with the airline, because that's her business. That's her industry. And I get her, you know, having to make adjustments to living back in the States and starting at the bottom level. And, you know, this, that, and other, and all the crap that she has to go through while he's traveling for work.
Yeah.
And even Sharon was like, but I don't get why she's so pissed off and upset, because she knew what she was getting into.
Right.
And on one hand, I got Sharon's point and I get Mickey's point. But I also kind of feel like when you decide to become a couple, now it's time to start making some of the allowances. So,
right. I would also argue that it doesn't matter how much he tells you that he travels during the season to do these different games or whatever.
You got to experience it.
You've got to experience it. She didn't know what she was getting into.
Yeah, she just knew that he was a referee and he traveled.
There's no way to know what it's like during an NBA season for and also how often would he really travel? Like it feels like he would do regional games
And
until
that was something that I brought up to Sharon, because at one point she asked him, "Can't you coach locally?" "I can't do high school. Kids are armed. It pays nothing. I'm a pro."
right.
And I was like, "Well, why not coach for the Pac-10 or the Pac-12?"
Yeah, the college level.
Yeah, because the college level, you can make just as much money, I would think. Maybe not to that extent, but still, if you've got a second income, you don't need to make as much,
Right.
really. But then at the same token, I would think referees, unless if he is that high of a level of an NBA ref,
Yeah.
then I would say, okay, they probably keep him within region, unless it's for one of those marquee matchups, like for that time period, Bulls versus the Magic, or, you know what I mean, in that regard. But still, you're doing mostly regional games, I would think.
It says NBA referees, like the players, spend practically the entire season on the tour and travel to every game.
Wow.
The regular season lasts 8 months with postseason games stretching. Yada, yada, yada. So I guess maybe this is realistic.
Yeah. So then, I mean, I would think that, well, why not try to get a job in the college ranks, for a power conference?
Mm-hmm.
That way, you could still make some big money, I would think. Or coach. Why don't you coach?
Yeah.
Coach college level.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
I feel like he just doesn't want to, because he wants to live the same life that he did before. Like,
Yeah.
he got swept up in this like
Whirlwind.
romantic story that he was living when he was in Paris, which happens is there's a holiday romance.
It really, well, a death romance.
Well, for sure, but it's still like after he recovers his father, he's just a tourist.
Right. Yeah,
Like,
you're right. You're
he's
right.
in Paris on holiday at that point. He doesn't even really give a shit about his dad, honestly, right? Like,
no, he just did it because he wanted to clear his conscience, and I get
right.
that.
So it really is just a holiday romance, and those things are never meant to last forever, right? Like, it's
Right.
like magic. You dance by the bridge, you sing the song to each other. Then when you leave, like it's
over. Summer loving.
It will always linger with you for sure, and you'll always wonder what if. But don't ever go back and try to make it happen, because that shit. Like, he knew her for like a week,
Right, right. Same. Yeah, and you know what? And that's where we get our title. Forget Paris. Forget about it.
Yeah.
Now, he eventually concedes. They buy a house in the valley, which I'm assuming is San Fernando Valley, I guess. Is that the valley?
Yeah.
Or is there another valley in Southern California? Does it even rain?
Wikipedia, it's San Fernando.
Nice. I've watched enough TV. But does it rain in Southern California? Tony says it doesn't. So I'm going to believe that.
What about Tony?
Tony. A lot of Tonys in that band.
Yeah.
So he gets this house. And that house was banging, man. I like that house. That house was pretty on point. I was dying laughing when her dad showed up and was living with them.
Yeah.
Because I understand him getting pissed, because I'm sorry.
Well, this is a thing that that kind of thing changes the dynamic of a relationship, right?
It really does. Because, I mean, I'm sorry. Like, what if, like, I'm sorry. Like, as much as I like Sharon's dad and all, Tom's a cool dude. But if he was living with us and he just kept going, "You asked for it, you got it. Sorry, Yoda," I'd stab him.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'd shank him. I really would. Sharon, of course, every time there's an annoying parent character, she just rolls her eyes and goes, "That's my mother." And I'm like, give her a break. But and then he's selling cars, which he's not that happy about.
Yeah.
And then he starts feeling nervous because he thinks he sees his wife in a car with something. I'm sorry, if Mickey ain't pulling down all the hot cheerleaders, there's no way some hot-ass Southern California dude driving a Porsche like that is going after Deborah Winger.
Right.
He's looking for a Kate Moss, Kate Upton, Cindy Crawford type.
Right. He's the one that's knocking down the others. But this is all about
his insecurity.
All about his insecurity. That's why he lies about dating all the cheerleaders. That's why, even though he spends all these nights alone in a hotel room, he is worried that she's going to leave him if he doesn't leave her.
Right.
That she's going to cheat on him. He probably would have cheated on her if he could.
Yeah.
But it turns out like his charm is really probably manifests itself as he's probably neurotic in reality, right?
He's very neurotic. He's very, very neurotic, very, very awkward, but with a confidence that is kind of, I don't even want to call it off-putting, but he hides behind humor.
And so ultimately he decides he's going back to the NBA.
Yep. So he goes back. They've got this huge sort of disconnect, blah, blah, blah.
Right. She's like, you didn't even think to talk to me about it. And he was like, well, I knew what you would say.
And I try to talk every time I try to talk to you.
And she said, and you did it anyway. And
right.
Like, yeah, man, like that's like these two people don't belong together.
No, they really don't. I mean, I get this. You know what this falls under to me as far as romances? This is the Edward and Bella type of thing where it's not healthy.
Yeah, they're both shitty people.
Yeah, and it's this toxic situation. Well, yeah, because the Mickey Ellen dynamic is like a step away from straight up toxicity.
Yeah,
they're both good people trying to do the right thing, but it's not good for them.
Right.
But they're trying. And then, Ellen makes the like the same way that Mickey sort of made the allowances with getting the house and whatnot. She takes her dad back to Wichita. Then we get to this next obstacle that they run into by trying to have a kid, which is another very hilarious sequence.
Mm-hmm.
And there were times where I saw the woman that was playing the nurse. You could tell she's trying so hard to stay in character with Billy Crystal. Because he's like, we've got this, that, and other, blah, 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 for videos. And he was like, do you have any Sophia Loren movies? And she's like, you have to ejaculate, we have to put your sperm to the egg within an hour, or we might as well scrape the egg in the trash. Oh, yeah, really turn on the pressure. I'm like, dude, why didn't your wife just like come with you and like give you a blowy in the room? But so he talks the nurse into letting him go home because he was like, I ejaculate half an hour from here.
That was a very funny line.
Right. It really was. So basically they've been doing these fertility treatments and it's finally time to introduce the egg. Mickey's getting performance anxiety because, I guess he can't jerk off in a public place. Anywho, sounds like a personal problem to me. He talks the nurse into letting him go home to do it. And then he does so, and he has this huge hang up. Don't use famous last words because they probably will be. There's the neurotic personality.
Right.
And he goes, wish me luck. Piece of cake. Oh, no, she said it. And he actually gets caught up in Los Angeles traffic, which, dude, that's your fault. You should have known better.
Yeah, just do it at the clinic, right?
Seriously, if you can't do it in the room, then go into the bathroom.
Yeah, I don't know. Like
that whole sequence was way more difficult than it needed to be.
Yeah, it's the whole like American Pie shit break thing, right? Like
it really was.
Yeah.
So he's driving like furiously fast on the shoulder, gets pulled over by the cops, explains the situation, and here's the privilege. He gets a police escort.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If this was Dion Cole in the Mickey Gordon role, he'd have gotten his ass beat.
Yeah.
But then they find out that it didn't take. They continue to try it. And then they decide that they're not going to do it anymore because she's not able to have kids, which puts yet another strain on them because they can't adopt because of his work schedule.
Yeah.
And then it just gets way worse. And then now they're in a rut. Then she says, well, I got a promotion. We got to move to Dallas. Well, I don't want to move to Dallas. Then fine, I'm taking the job in France. Which that's kind of like rough to sort of throw in there. Like that's a rough situation.
Well,
right
I mean,
there.
they constantly are just trying to like one up each other. You know what I
They're
mean? Like,
bickering at each other. They're
yeah,
fussing at each other.
it's all just bullshit.
At that point,
They are not happy together, and they need to stop being together, and they don't need to be together at the end.
yeah. So then she decides that she's gonna go, and they're like, now Mickey's living in this house that he didn't want alone, and blah blah blah, and yada yada yada. But meanwhile, they're all telling this story. They're waiting to have dinner, waiting on Mickey to show up. Come to find out, bum bum bum, Ellen shows up at the game somehow, some way, because security is lax. They should all be fired. And they
I
just
think she's got a tracker on this guy.
she must, man. Either that or she has a private detective following him around at all times.
She has like snuck some sort of GPS tracker up this guy's butthole during sex.
she did about pull some freaking IMF shit with him to be able to track him down.
Yeah.
Sorry, IMF is on my brain because I recently binged all the Mission Impossible movies.
Oh, right, I gotcha.
And so they decide that they're really going to make this work. And then when they show up to dinner, now this woman, Liz, is a sobbing mess of a human being and is hugging these people that she doesn't know. Like, that's the one part of the movie, the biggest part that I had issue with. I'm like, bitch, get your hands off me. You don't know me to be hugging me like that.
Yeah.
You pulling me into an embrace to the point that I'm out of air? Get the fuck off me.
Yeah. Well, that's the movie. Well, yeah, that's the movie, right? Like
that's pretty much it.
Let's get Smiley in here so we can debrief on our ratings.
Oh, you're really done.
The Plotaholics rating system for the movies is a pretty simple system. Basically, they rate movies based on how many shots it takes to get through them. So if you got a good movie and you get through it all the way sober, then it takes 0 shots to get through the movie. And then if you got a really bad movie, then it could take up to 5 shots to get through the whole thing. I think you can try to figure out the middle part yourself. So what can I get you?
I'm not done with it. I'm just ready to pass judgment.
Okay, fair enough. You're just you're like, I'm ready.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna start getting into it, and I didn't want to like tip my hand too much before we got the rating stuff.
Okay,
like it is so okay. Where do we begin? I don't hate this movie. We'll start there.
Okay, that makes me happy.
Had a good time most of the time. Like I had a good time, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
It's just like pretty like underwhelming. It's like there's nothing special really about it. It's a very sort of standard kind of rom-com. If you divorced it from the framing device of these friends like telling the story, and if you cut all of that out of it, it would be exactly the same, and it would just feel a lot more basic. You know what I mean? Because by introducing this like storytelling aspect of it, it makes it feel novel, even though it's really not.
Yeah.
And I would say that like the interesting stuff about it is what we've talked about here today with like how you lose some of the like accuracy of the story because of that. Like that's interesting. That's something that I would have liked to have seen them lean into even more. Like, let's get more of that. Like you're like either trying to make your boy look better or you're trying to, like all of that stuff,
Yeah.
I feel like we didn't get a fully realized version of that like unreliable narrator that I would have liked to have seen. Because it was there and we just needed they needed to lean into it a little more. Its strengths are absolutely Billy Crystal. Like without him, I don't think that it is even as good as it is, right? Like he's funny, effortlessly funny, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he's fun to watch. It's a fun movie to watch. It's just not special.
If Billy Crystal isn't in this movie, it is not a good movie. I mean, well, it's not a bad movie, but it's not as good.
Who they get instead, right? But
yeah, like do you think we could put Dion Cole in this role? Like if we did a remake of this, modernized it, do you think Dion Cole would be good in this?
That's
and the reason why
he was actually handsome.
Well, Billy Crystal is unconventionally kind of handsome.
Sure, but Dion Cole could bang cheerleaders.
All right, so
Dion Cole is every bit as funny as Billy Crystal. He's just also handsome.
well, that's why, and that's the reason why I use Dion Cole, because
You, I
Dion
think
Cole
you,
is so funny.
I think you lose something with somebody like Dion Cole in those basketball scenes,
Yeah,
like
well,
because he isn't as short as Billy Crystal. I don't think.
I think that he's probably. I think Dion Cole's probably about like 6 foot.
Right, which is like
Or
a normal height, right?
yeah, where
And
Billy Crystal's about 5'7".
yeah, so I mean, I feel like Dion Cole is like bigger. Like he's not like Billy Crystal is like legitimately watching a string bean on the court. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
Dion Cole is just a little bit more of a presence. So I think that those scenes don't play as funny as they do here. How about what about Nick Kroll? Do you know
Wow.
Nick Kroll?
No, but he sounds very just plain.
Nick Kroll is
Let me
the
look him
league.
up.
The league.
Oh, okay. If it is who I think, okay. Yes and no, because I think Nick Kroll is so unlikable sometimes. Where Billy Crystal is very likable. Nick
That's
Kroll
fair.
just
That is
he
fair.
has that face that you just
I
want
only
to
bring
punch.
him up because he did on Kroll's show. He did a bit where he played an NBA referee,
Okay.
and he was just like super inappropriate all the time, like trying to hang out with all the players and stuff after the game. Super awkward. He's like, "So what are y'all getting up to after this? What are y'all? Where's the party at after this?" Uh, and he just, I don't know. Whenever I saw Billy Crystal in that little referee costume, I thought of Nick Kroll.
Nick Kroll. I can
Yeah.
see, I mean, yeah, I think that I
Right,
think
he
you could,
does play like smug douchebags most of the time.
yeah, it has to be someone that's
I
likable.
mean, I think Andy Samberg.
Andy Samberg would be perfect in that role.
Yeah.
Like Andy Samberg could be Billy Crystal's kid. He's just that effortlessly funny.
He is that effortlessly funny.
So I think so. If we reshot this with say Andy Samberg in this role, is this as good of a movie, or is it still just plain and it's just because it's Billy Crystal?
I think it's as good as it is currently.
Okay.
I think as long as you've got like the friends sitting around at the beginning, like or throughout the movie telling the story, and you've got like, I don't know, like Bill Hader is like the first guy telling the story, and like
I would have even said Terry Crews would have been
or
pretty fun.
Terry Crews could be in there. That would be funny too. Like, and those are the guys telling this, and it is funny because then you've got Terry Crews, who again is this like traditionally like very handsome guy talking about this playboy, Andy. like that is funny, but only if they, and I believe if they were to remake it today, they would lean way more into that unreliable narrator stuff,
Absolutely.
Well, and at least be like, well, that's what he told me, right? Like, just at least acknowledge that what you're telling us might actually be a lie.
Right. I think that where this movie suffers is where a lot of films of this time suffer is the editing. Because
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure like the writing of this script was probably far more complete.
Yeah.
But it ended up being so much content.
Well, and I think like you get some of this, like in a lot of movies like this, I think you probably get studio notes that say we need more like comedic set pieces. And when
Yeah.
you have to start adding like a bird getting stuck in a fly trap in your hair, then you have to lose some of the other development stuff, right?
Correct.
Because like it's 1 hour and 40 minutes, and that's probably like where they wanted it to come in. And I imagine that a first draft leaned more into like the relationship development. And then it became, as like Billy Crystal got attached to it and things like that, they started trying to dial up the comedy.
Yeah, well, it says here he's credited as a co-writer.
Then he probably added all that stuff. He's the
He
one.
probably did. He probably got pulled into it and then added some of the some more comedy to it.
Yeah.
And
But when Harry Met Sally, it is not.
yeah. Well, I think though with When Harry Met Sally, I think the reason why that is looked at as being a better movie is because of Rob Reiner's direction.
Yeah.
I think that if you had Rob Reiner directing this film, like this film is directed by, well, Billy Crystal directed this. How many times have we seen actors that have written and directed a film, and sometimes it slips because they're wearing too many hats?
Well, and they don't have the same sense of story that
Correct.
a director would have. Like an experienced director has a bigger world like view of what a story can be and like how to like connect all of those dots, right? Like it's like it's what you get from like bringing in a James Gunn to like try to unify the DCU, right? Like
Yeah.
he's a director, he understands sort of like the larger implications of what story can be.
Right.
And like how to pull that stuff out a little bit more and make sure that it feels complete. When Billy Crystal is a director and writer on something that he stars in, he's a comedian first. And so like the humor of it takes precedent over, like takes the front seat away from the story, you know? And like in a lot of places here, we talked about how the story suffers for the joke. Like the joke is very funny and it's very good, but like the ends don't justify the means. Like with the like driving home to rub one out in a cup, right? Instead of doing it at the doctor's office. Like that's a funny bit, but the story suffered for it because it like slowed us down in this moment that we really didn't even need to be slowed down in.
Correct. And I think that at the end of the day, yeah, that's what really, because I used to look at this movie as When Harry Met Sally with basketball. I like basketballs. I don't like basketball players. I like basketballs.
Yeah.
But the only real similarity though is
like, wait a minute, wait. How many basketballs are in this?
if there aren't at minimum 2 basketballs in this movie, I'm not watching it.
If it's no basketballs, then it's going to be a no for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I want all the basketballs.
That
more
explains
basketballs.
When we saw Endgame, you were like, it was pretty good, but there were no basketballs.
Considering the fact that Thanos did not take a bounce pass to the chin,
right?
It's a missed opportunity.
Every
right
third
there.
act action sequence needs to be like a Space Jam, like basketball game.
Absolutely. Dude, can you imagine Thanos like trying to cross over freaking Tony Stark
or
and
like,
then dunk?
Thanos like shows up, right? And instead of pulling that like fucking spear thing off of his back, he just like open palms a basketball. And then he's just like, all right, you guys suit up. And now you've got like Captain America wearing his like little gym shorts.
Oh my God. He's wearing the nut huggers.
Right. He's like shirts versus skins. We're skins. And like Thor would be popping his shirt off if he wasn't like Fat Thor in that one.
Yeah.
Actually, he would be popping it off anyway. He didn't care.
He didn't care. Well, I think though, but the thing is though, is that Tony Stark is like, don't worry, Cap. I've got an ace in the hole. And here comes Michael Jordan to fly like an eagle by seal. And he goes, let's see if I can still do this. But right. Michael, you're 58. Let's see if I can still do it. And he's still dunking on like Thanos and like.
Or like, what if he calls Michael Jordan, but like he can't get through to him? So then he calls Michael Jordan's agent and his agent's like, oh yeah, he went in the snap.
Yeah,
like, he got dusted. And then Tony Stark's like, all right, who else you got?
Can we get Michael B. Jordan?
Right. Yeah.
Maybe Magic Johnson? I don't know.
Right. And then the portal opens up, but instead of Black Panther, it's like Michael Jordan walks out.
Yeah. And he's wearing like his, Bulls jersey. Scottie Pippen comes out of another portal. Dennis Rodman comes out wearing a wedding dress. But his hair is like all crazy colored.
It's just the 1990s NBA comes out of that portal instead of the Wakandan army.
Yeah, it's literally all the superstars of the 90s NBA.
Yeah.
Why aren't we making movies?
I don't know. That may be the weirdest one we've ever. I don't know. I think our Sticky Hands movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Kevin Hart is maybe the weirdest one.
Yeah,
gets stuck to Arnold Schwarzenegger's hands.
Oh man, that would be so great. Every time Arnold Schwarzenegger goes to do something, he's like holding Kevin Hart by the shoulder. Kevin's like, ah!
Yeah, he's like this, and like Kevin has to do all of the stuff for Arnold Schwarzenegger because he's the one with the free hands.
He's got to shoot the guns. He's got to throw the knife.
Right.
But Kevin Hart can't throw very
Honestly,
well.
like, what about like you remember Planet Terror when that woman had the gun on her hand? What if Arnold Schwarzenegger
The gun on her leg, yeah.
What if Arnold Schwarzenegger replaces one of his arms with Kevin Hart?
Oh my God. You know what I just got a picture of? It was season 1 of South Park where what the hell was the name of that big monster?
The Streisand thing, right? It was the Barbara Streisand.
No, not the Mecha Streisand. It was the thing that had Patrick Duffy for a leg.
Oh, right, yes.
Except it's Arnold Schwarzenegger with Kevin Hart for an arm.
Yeah.
Kevin Hart's arms are like, his legs are fused together at Arnold Schwarzenegger's shoulder.
What I need is for Kevin Hart to be attached to Arnold Schwarzenegger at the wrist, but at his back. So like his arms and legs are all flaily like the whole time because he's off the ground.
That is, you know what? That's the perfect film right there.
Yeah, and all it takes is like an opening sequence where it's like the year is 2073. Science have finally discovered how to make Kevin Hart useful again.
But Kevin Hart's entire body is still smaller than Arnold Schwarzenegger's other arm.
Right.
So he kind of looks like the guy from Scary Movie 2 with the creepy arm that like nobody wanted him to touch their food.
It's like they're like, we didn't know what to do with Kevin Hart anymore, so we just fed a bunch of stuff to AI, and it said that we needed to attach him to Arnold Schwarzenegger's arm.
Oh my God. Yeah, and the reason why it's Arnold Schwarzenegger is because if it was The Rock, it would just be way too obvious.
Right. But at this point, it has to be like a mega Schwarzenegger, because like a mecha one, because he'll be dead, right? Probably rip. But
yeah,
like so it'll be like the Terminator with Kevin Hart for a hand.
Motherfucker, I'll be back. We'll be right back, motherfucker. So what's your rating for this?
Oh, sorry, 3, I think.
A 3 shot?
Yeah.
I'm gonna give this one honestly, I'm trying really hard not to give this. I'm trying not to pad my rating with the nostalgia because I do really enjoy this movie. I
didn't dislike it. I just feel like there are some weaknesses.
Yeah, I mean, even with the weaknesses, I think Billy Crystal is so strong that you're able to just sit back and enjoy this film. I give it a 1-shot rating because it's just a fun movie. It's such a well-told story, even with some of the aspects of the story that suffer due to some of the comedy, and Billy Crystal looking to write, direct, and star. But his co-stars also really help pick him up.
Yeah.
When he does start to sort of fizzle out a bit.
Yeah.
These roles are perfectly cast. And I'm sorry, Kathy Moriarty, every time I see her in something, I just want to laugh so hard. I don't know why, but she just makes me laugh so hard.
Yeah.
So, this is a 1-shot for me.
Okay. All right. Well, what do we want to do next week?
Let me see. Since I can look at my VHSs now, I'm not going to watch them, but I don't know. You want to watch? I don't know. Do we want to go rom-com or just something random?
We can do rom-com since it's Valentine's week.
All right. You want to do The Bodyguard?
Ooh.
Ooh, what?
Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Sold.
Let's do that.
Okay.
That feels like a good Valentine's week movie.
Yeah. And hey, Kieran Culkin's always a win.
Yeah.
So is Michael Cera. And Michael Cera could play Mickey.
Yes, he could. We've been talking about doing Scott Pilgrim for years.
So it's time. It is time to do Scott Pilgrim.
So we'll be back next week with Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
All right, guys, make sure you like, share, subscribe, leave comments if you'd like to. Rate us on that Apple.
On that Apple.
And on the Tubing You.
Yes. If you found the feed.
If you find us, like us, share us, subscribe us, leave us comments, and we'll probably talk about you. And if you don't, that's fine. We'll assume that you're just shy.
Yeah, that's okay. But
Yeah,
we'll talk to you guys. We'll talk at you guys next week.
Take care, everybody.
Take a trip with us to Nilbog. Just promise not to drink the goo.
Oh my God!
If you get sucked into the Matrix, we will send a phone for you.
Do you believe in fate?
But every movie has a plot hole, and every hole gets filled somehow. Whiskey, wine, or blue milk. Just don't cut me off right now. We're the Plotaholics, a breakfast club of two. We're the Plotaholics, ripping plots apart for you.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.